here when it comes to designing world, we need to take care of time as well. How whether the time is going to respect to the real world time, or it's going to be less, or it's gonna be even more. Everything we can able to decide. Whether the more time is going to move slower, whether it's going to be faster, and it's not going to have any difference between the real world time and the time which is going to be kept in the game. So for example, turn-based games or auction games, there is no concept of time. Okay, so it's all about playing. But with respect to time, the activities differ. With respect to time, the activity differ. Everything will be ideal. It will be running in a continuous loop until the player interacts with it in some way. So until the player tries to interact with some objects, when it comes, it has certain relationship with the time. Then comes the activity of the time, the usage of the time in the game. Okay, so till that you won't be having any problem. It will be going on. The player will be playing. So then he is going to. So when the designer have created a concept or objective which is relevant to the time in the game, which is relevant to either it can be of the real world time in the game, which is having a direct relationship with the game, then we can have certain activities when the player going to notice. Okay. So first thing is authentic. So for example, Wildcraft will be the time relation to the real world time and the game time is similar. The same even though they are using different servers. Okay. So the usage of time in the game, characteristics and the portrayal time will be same. Okay. So for example, detect the amount of light where the game is being played. So if it is of night, the darkness, the scene which is used, the level which is designed, it will be high. It's kind of a game which will be played in the night time. Okay, the environment is changed into night time. If they are playing in the daytime, the environment will be changed in such a way that it is happening in the daytime. Okay, you can see sunlight, all these things. For example, you are playing a vampire game. So when it comes to the sunlight, daytime, the vampires can't come out at the daytime. So there we can able to control the game. The player must come outside during the daytime, peak sunlight. So it can have a negative. For example, Skyrim. If the player is bitten by a vampire, okay. So when the player is tend to move in the daytime, he tend to lose certain character's energy level. For example, werewolf. At the night time, he gets converted. So all these things are there. So with respect to time, okay. So we can able to control this. Okay. For example, one cowboy game, red pattern. So when it comes to real time, the man ages also grows and he tends to have this beard growing. Okay. So all many things are there. Many kind of special events will be triggered with respect to the time. Okay. The limiter. So for example, recently FIFA comes to the idea of for one day they can able to solve a puzzle. Next day you can do the same puzzle again. So that kind of limitation we can have. For example, there will be stores, there is monsters which will be attacked only at the dark time. Okay. So for example, in Pokemon, ghost Pokemon will be accessed only at the mid by 12 to 1. Okay, certain Pokemons will be available after 6 p.m. These things are limitations. We are limiting the 10 characters to appear at the certain time only, and that time is related to our real world time. In Pokemon, this is designed even it is have direct relationship with our real time. Okay, so this is how we can able to control this time. Yeah. So variable. So when it comes to time in the game, it is kind of a virtual time. It is just a variable. Whether, for example, in FIFA will be playing 90 minutes game, but when it comes to in the game, in 6 minutes the game is getting, in 6 minutes one session is finished. The whole game will be completed in 14 minutes. Okay, it is faster than. You cannot play 90 minutes a game, a particular match. Okay, for example, war game. Okay, so for example, in war game, soldiers need to sleep in the night. Okay, so they will be waiting for the morning. The players will be passing the game and they will be waiting for the morning. At that time, night time, the portions of the game will be missed. So certain times, a particular character, a particular object will be visible only in the night time. Okay, so all these things are possible with the variables. How we fix that? Sims game is a very good example which they have used this time simulation. Sleeping, they need to rest at the particular time, they need to eat food, they need to be hygienic, speed up the characters. Age of Empires, we can able to speed up the gameplay. So all these things are possible. Okay. So then comes the player adjustment. In sport games, the player can modify the time associated with the game level. For example, as I said, in FIFA, we can make the session into 20 minutes also. 4, 6, 8, 10, 20, like that. Okay. So this actually we can do that in the settings. Yeah. So, but many players, for example, many players they won't like to devote that much time the football game, tend to simulate the football game. For example, flight simulation. Okay, so when it comes to long duration, they tend to have the autopilot mode things on. They like to speed up the activity. All these things are possible. So then comes the several games which has altered time effect. For example, altering the time, Max Payne, where we can able to use bullet time. The player will be flying and shooting. So one of the most greatest, one of the most wonderful event which will happen in that particular game. So even that made the game famous, even though that is not getting reflected in the movie. Okay, so the camera viewpoint changes, the motion, the slow motion gets into that game. So Matrix, okay, so it was used in Matrix then. Okay, then for example, real bullets, certain games when you tend to hit a character the head, it tends to show you the bullet speed, slow motion. Okay, so the player can rewind the time, for example, Prince of Persia. So it can be avoided when the opponents are defeating the player. So all these things are possible. So this is how the time, see the time, space and the objectives plays the interrelated. It has all these three things have a relationship when we are designing the world for the level. Okay, so it's very important. These things are correlating with each other and we tend to create a balanced level. The world is structured in a balanced way so that the level is playable. The information which is conveyed to the user in such a way that is not get confused with the level. The progress of the level should be smooth, it should not be flat or linear. It should be in such a way that the linear curve. So in such a way that the difficulties and the level, when it's easy and difficulties will be balanced out in such a way that the players are not getting bored. Okay,